Okay. So how are you?
Yeah, like we were
That's
just
how we
saying, like,
started.
I had a little bit of struggle this morning with this throwing out your back thing, which doesn't really exist. But I had like I bent down to pick up my running shoes, and that was it for a few hours. So I had to lie down. And the thing is that this is how my whole chronic pain story started, basically, like with a really bad thing of hurting my back. And I had about 2 years of constantly having back pain in different places and not getting out of it. So I just realized that there's still some, like a story popping up in my head then, and like fear or no, not really panic. I don't tend to do really panic attacks, but like
Yeah,
just being scared and pissed off with it. And I noticed that it's so much about the meaning I put into it, because like the pain wasn't so bad. I took 2 Ibus and I was just lying down a bit, and I could just see, like, I had a session with Hannah. She luckily had time for me to talk to me a bit, and it was a really nice session, which helped me a lot. And I can just see this difference between the actual physical sensation and dealing with that, like canceling a few things I had to do, and about the meaning I give to it. And it's just so interesting to me, because I feel like I'm just seeing it deeper and deeper. Like in the beginning, when I started working or learning about the principles, I couldn't even see how much blah blah I had in my head about the
yeah,
physical
how
stuff.
much like the
Yeah,
meaning and the vigilance behind
yeah,
the checking
yeah,
of symptoms all the time. Yeah.
totally. And then you feel like it's getting less, like you see it's super annoying, and then it kind of gets less because you're not so interested anymore. But I feel like every few weeks I'm seeing it on a new level, or I'm seeing like, oh, there's still a lot going on.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I often like
Yeah.
yeah, tell me.
Yeah, no, I really empathize with that. I feel like I've let go of the checking, but then it comes up in other ways.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh yeah, I have a headache. Oh yeah, I've got pain, or this call's going to be uncomfortable because of pain. So it's still like part of my story and part of like me checking in how I'm going to do throughout my day. And I know what's going on. Like I can observe like that I'm in my thinking, but it's still, and it's fine to have those thoughts, but I engage with them too much.
yeah,
Like
I feel like
they can be part of the story. And like right now I'm in lockdown on my own in London. So there's lots of time to think. And if I'm resting because I'm in too much pain, I can do a lot of thinking in that time, which isn't always that helpful.
yeah.
So but one thing I came up with yesterday.
The background noise.
Yeah, I think it's Linda.
Yeah.
Oh, that's better. Thank you, Linda.
Thank
Yeah, what I realized yesterday was when I have a cold.
you.
Oh,
Maybe Lori, you can
hey
mute her.
Linda, can you mute?
Both.
I think you can mute it, Lori.
Okay, so does every ad go through a human being?
Laurie, can you mute Linda?
No, no beans, no beans.
Yeah, she's
We can't.
not muted.
Ah, okay. I think now Laurie saw it, maybe.
Thanks, Lori.
Yeah,
Yeah, something that I realized yesterday
all
was
this huge noise, and you were having such a wonderful conversation about how the feeling of pain and sensation comes and goes, and how our thinking affects that. So, and don't mind, if you names popping up on the screen, it just means people are coming in without their video. So don't let that bother you. They're all people that I know who.
Laurie?
No, we just want her to mute her. That's what we wanted.
Yeah,
because
just to mute
the noise is
Linda.
coming from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, the noise is all coming from Linda.
There is so much noise in the background. So it's not gonna be for too much longer. Do you all hear it?
It's not your noise, Laurie. It's Linda's noise.
Oh,
Can you mute Linda? It's not your noise is actually okay, but Linda has a lot of noise. So, and we can't talk to Linda, but if you can mute Linda, because you're the host, you can mute Linda.
okay. Linda, can you mute yourself? Because I'm not able to do it on my end
Oh, okay. I thought maybe.
without a picture.
You can, being the host, Laurie, you can.
Yeah.
She's hearing me. Okay.
Yeah,
check.
Laurie, you can mute Linda.
Yeah, I can only mute the pictures and she's not, I don't see a mute for her.
Oh. Okay.
Sorry, it doesn't come on my screen. It only comes on the screen with,
I'm gonna try to make someone else the host and see if they can mute her then, if you change host.
I just WhatsApp her, maybe she sees it.
on bottom of your screen, Linda. I don't know if she can hear me with the leaf blowing going on. Yeah, I only have 5 pictures and they have the mute button on in them. So I can't even locate Linda on my side until she comes in or goes out, then the name Linda comes up. Are you still hearing background noise other than leaf blowing, which I will mute so you don't hear the leaf blowing?
No, just Linda. Just from Linda.
So in other words, Linda she's getting background noise
Yeah.
come through. Ah,
But Flick, one thing I wanted to ask yourself, like, do you also have this thing of feeling guilty for not being able to figure it out or let go enough or anything?
Yeah, well, I have this thing of like, so when the thoughts come where I notice I'm checking my pain and like attaching to it a bit, like there's a big part of me sometimes I have the thoughts of I'll be okay when I'm not in pain, and that's not helpful.
Yeah.
And when I have those thoughts, I feel like I'm guilty, and I feel like I've kind of like, yeah, I'm not doing it right.
Yeah. That's what I was struggling with most during the whole
Yeah.
year. And of course, it falls away sometimes, and I'm in a beautiful space. But when I get into a bad mood, like when I have a dip of my level of consciousness, this is the thought that's always getting me. And today I talked with Hannah about it, and we came up with a nice image of saying, this is like the pseudo-spiritual yoga lady in me, you know, who has all the solutions to everything and tells me, oh, you just need to get a better understanding and then it will go. And it was kind of helpful to, you know.
And you can like tell that pseudo-spiritual yoga version of you that, you know, you don't have to listen.
Yeah.
But it's hard not to listen.
Yeah, because I still believe in it. Like what I noticed during this year is always when I feel it's hard not to listen to my thinking, it's because I still think there's something valuable in there to find. Because the moment I see that it's not like that, there's nothing new or valuable in it, it kind of drops. So I feel it's always about if I'm seeing that there's no, you know, like no value in there, no truth in there. And this just goes up and down. Of course, it's different with different topics, but like in general, I can see that seems to be the point between seeing it's just thought and just intellectually, yeah, I know it's just thought, but it's still very interesting.
Yeah, it's like really seeing how pointless it is and trying to use it as a tool. So I'm like, okay, I've got something to work out, like a maths problem. Now I'm going to use my thinking toolkit rather than letting it use me. I was just going to share something that I realized yesterday with the group that weren't here earlier. I realized that when I have the flu, I don't care about, I don't monitor the flu. I don't check how I'm feeling. I just trust that I've had the flu before. My body does its thing. It's like when I'm hungover. I don't check in on my hungover. I'm just like, in a couple of days or tomorrow, whatever it is, I'm going to feel better. My body needs to rest. That makes complete sense. Whereas when it comes to like this chronic pain, it's like check, 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 check. And if I can just treat it like, so today I've been thinking of it like, oh, I've just got the flu. It's no big deal. And it helps.
Really nice analogy.
Softer. It's a bit softer. Yeah. It's a bit like, oh, well, this is just what's happening to me right now. It's not forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also the control thing is not so much in there, you know, like this
yeah, it's
control
the control, because I've been controlling all my life.
Yeah.
Or trying to control all my life so that I'm successful or people like me or whatever.
Yeah.
So letting go of like, but actually when you do surrender, I feel a deep sense of relief in my body. It's just like, it's like going to a spa.
Yeah.
Do you have that experience too?
I like today I listened to a talk and somebody was talking about a session George Prensky did with somebody, and the client he was talking to had OCD, like this behavior stuff, and he really wanted to get rid of it and had so much judgment on it. And George said to him, what makes you think that this isn't made by mind, like by the oneness, by God, whatever you want to call it? And that basically made me cry from relief, because this is the distinction I always make. Like I often feel it's hard to accept it because I think it's in my control and I have to do something about it, and it's somehow wrong. So yeah, I totally get this feeling of relief when I calm down from that.
It's like mind has created this, manifested this in our lives because of our psychological innocence and the things that we, and now we see things differently. It's just going to take, it's like John L. Mokadom says, it just takes like time, understanding, and love.
Yeah.
And you can get there.
Yeah.
But the most important thing is like, what I'm realizing is to like give myself a break and actually really trust that mind can just does everything. It's just like, oh, you're like, really? It can do everything?
I will interject on that. Maybe it's mind way of getting your attention to something that is not working. And for me, lots of pain, often there's anger behind that. And it's maybe, a way of mind instead of, oh yeah, mind created it, I cannot do anything about it. How about mind telling you that some shit is not working out at the moment, right? And you need to take care of that. And I see that more as a love letter of your body and mind telling you that something needs to take care of. So that's my
absolutely agree with that. No, I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah,
I actually, sorry, go Teresa.
I just want to say I don't agree with everything people in 3P say, and I have a totally different relationship to my pain. Because if I have an effect because of vitamin deficiency, I wouldn't say, oh yeah, this is with mind and I can meditate it away. No, I need to take the vitamins. Becoming ill is the best thing that ever happened to me, because if I hadn't become ill, I would still work in a nursery for minimum wage. I had the opportunity, or I was forced to stop to work because my knee doesn't work anymore and I had so much pain. And I wake up happy every day. I don't monitor my pain. I have pain like I have long hair. It's just there. But I have no cartilage in my knee. And I think I don't say this is the reason for my pain, but I say, I don't know what the reason is. It could be because of emotions. It could be because I have no cartilage. So I don't really want to hear from people, oh no, you're wrong and this is in your mind and this, because I don't have any problems with my pain. I'm not bitter. I don't wish it would be different. I don't compare myself with people who have more pain, and I don't compare myself with people who have less pain. My pain is something I need to, it's like, I don't know, something is stuck and you have to find a solution. So for example, I have 2 hospital appointments tomorrow. I'm getting splints for my thumbs, and I'm getting a knee brace. And for me, that's just like, yeah, it's like you're getting something else to help. And also, I don't think in the future, just today, I feel, and I think my body is so wise, and I'm having now a relationship with my body because I think this is a positive thing, and you will know why. And I can also see when I have stress, or when I think I want something and my body doesn't. So I said to the agency, oh, I can go back into the nursery. I was doing like 1 or 2 days for them. And when I made myself available on the calendar, I got such bad sciatica, I couldn't get out of bed. And I knew my mind thinks I should do this work, and my body said, no, you shouldn't. And when I made the decision, then I'm not going into the nursery anymore, the sciatica disappeared. So for me, this is not something I have to fight or I have to do about. I think, oh, wow, isn't that amazing? So for me, I don't really have to know where's the pain. It's just I have this pain at the moment, and I need a wheelchair, and I need my rollator, and I need to do things. But it doesn't, sometimes it's maybe a bit more exhausting, but some jobs are really exhausting, and it is just what it is. And I have so much more patience and understanding for other people. And I was always the type of person, because I'm a teacher as well, like I found a solution, like, oh, this is the shiny solution, you have to try it. And because people do this to me, they say, oh, you have to eat healthy and you do exercise and blah, blah, blah. And I thought, oh my God, I did this to people. Thank God I've got this experience, because I don't do that anymore. And I think we all have our own truth. And that is what I wanted to tell you, that, Laurie, because I read Second Chance. I haven't really finished it, but I also watched Sid Banks' videos. And all of a sudden I realized we are all like children with a little torch, and we're looking everywhere for the truth. And we find a truth. And who am I to tell you that your truth is not true? And who are you to tell me that my truth is not true? So all truth is true for us. And before, because when I grew up in my family, I wasn't allowed to share my opinion. So whatever someone said, that was the order. So when I became an adult and someone said something that didn't agree with me, I got scared, because I thought, I haven't got a voice for myself. And now I just think, thank you for sharing. And we don't have to agree. And for one person, they would say, oh yeah, I have no cartilage in my knee, but that doesn't matter. I shouldn't have pain. It's all in my mind. And I say, well, I have a different experience, and they're both worthy the same. They're both true, because they're true for each other. And for me, the experience of having this pain is just like, yeah, it stops me from running a marathon, but I do everything else what I can. And for me, it's always, okay, I'm a jewelry maker as well. I can't work on my table a lot. So I'm working in bed, and I posted pictures and I made blogs, and people are like, you work in bed? How is that possible? And I'm going to make a video series. And for me, I'm using what is called a problem to encourage other people who are homebound and in bed, and tell them, look, it doesn't have to stop you. And for me, that's why it's a gift. I don't feel guilty for having pain, or I can't do anything, because I'm lazy as well. I didn't do things before I was in pain because I was lazy, So it's, for me, it's just an absolutely amazing journey. And people, when I say, oh yeah, I'm struggling with my pain, they're always like, oh yeah, I can help you, or oh, I feel sorry for you. And so, no, it's like, I'm hungry. You're not gonna want to feed me straight away. I'm just telling you, oh, I'm hungry, I think I want to eat something. So I'm just telling you, today I'm struggling with pain, and that's it. So anyway, I've talked enough now. And Linda's quiet.
Well, wow, just in time for the leaf blowers to stop making their noise. That conversation between the four of you was just priceless. Really, there was so much there. I felt like I should be taking notes so that I could talk about it all, but quickly I remembered, no, that's not a good idea. Because what does Sid say? I'll be 2 sentences behind. I love that line in Search of the Pearl, right? So everything that all of you said was just so wow, right? I mean, you talked about the fact that there are no mistakes, that we learn and grow from everything, that everything in life, if we could see it as a love letter, I think Bill Pettit coined that term. I love that. Whether it be physical pain or emotional pain, right? And do we get caught up? And I think, I don't know if it was Flick or Pelavy that we're talking about, how when we get caught up thinking that our difficult thinking is important, is trying to tell us something other than the fact that, oh, you're hurting, you have to go to the hospital, you have to take care of that cut, you know, the common sense kind of thing. But to be thinking that there's some value in this, like if I go further into this thinking, I'll find out why my brother did that to me, or what my mother meant by that, or, you know, some thinking like that we do. And that's where the misuse of the ability to think comes in, as far as I can see. So I'd love for you to talk about, you know, what in the 3 principles, because to me, that's what made the difference for me. But you could talk about anything that really made the difference for you. Like I think you mentioned some remark that George Pransky made that I forget now, but it was really good. I should have written it down maybe. You'll send it to me, Teresa, right? I think it was Teresa.
No, Pallavi saying about John Pransky said, why don't you think that's not made by the mind? And that's a really good remark with this guy who has OCD. And that's what I think about my pain as well. Instead of thinking this is something I have to get rid of, or I have to, a really big problem I have to solve, why can't I just take the time, actually enjoy it? I know that sounds really weird, but enjoy that this is what is so prominent in my life right now. And obviously life has stopped me for a reason. Let's explore what the reason is. And I might sort of made this reason myself because I was so stressed and caught up in things. So I might have caused it little bit myself. But instead of thinking, oh, poor me and why me, like, oh wow, and I can see my life really before I became ill, even in 2018, and now, and I'm like, wow, thank God that happened.
Can I just check on that quote? Is it, how do I say your name? Is it Pallavi or
Pallavi? Yeah.
Pallavi. When he goes, it's the OCD is a creation of mind. Does he mean like mind, thoughts, brain, or does he mean like 3 principles, mind, capital M?
Yeah, I mean, I can't really tell you because it was a talk I listened to from Nicola and she was talking about it. And there was just something that really touched me. And she basically only said this one sentence, that the client was really struggling with OCD and had the feeling he had to get rid of it. And George Pransky just put this question: what makes you think this doesn't come from mind, like from the big mind, from God?
Oh, from big mind.
And
yeah.
it just really touched me.
Yeah, like what makes you think it's a problem?
Yeah, this judgment on it. And like Teresa, I really liked what you've been sharing. Thank you, because we've been talking about pain and we see some things differently, but I could just see the beauty in what you are sharing, and it was really inspiring to me in some of the things you mentioned. And like I guess this is one thing I learned from the 3P, which I really like. And also on the weekend, I was in the practitioner conference and it was a lot about listening and diversity and blind spots and stuff like that. And I feel like this respect for everybody having their own truth and expressing it in their own way. And that it also depends on from where you're looking right now, because I can see that it changes for me. And this is one thing like where I feel there's so much potential in it to be in contact with people where I might not agree on an intellectual level or come from different backgrounds or whatever, but to be way more open to listen and just to be present and not to have agree or disagree with everything, but just to connect with this part behind or beyond our opinions and experiences and our personal life, and like this weekend, this really touched me in the talks that were there. And
Oh, sorry.
it's just one other thing I wanted to mention to what Laurie asked, like when I had the first 2 sessions with Hannah and learned for the first time something, what really hit me was that I felt like I understood for the first time in my life, like after 30 years of spiritual searching and blah, blah, that when they all saying you are already that, you are already okay, you don't have to, go somewhere and get rid of stuff. I felt that for the first time. And it's not like I'm feeling this all the time. I'm getting caught up all the time, but I do have this experience now, and it comes back now and then to really see, oh my God, there's sometimes so much peace and vastness and open space without anything changing. Like I still have my circumstances and my story and the story about what Pallavi is doing, but it's there, it's like always there in the background. And this was a big thing for me. So yeah, that's it.
That's so wonderful. You're reminding me of so much is passing through my mind right now. But one is about, you mentioned so much mind and brain. What's the differentiation? I think that was a comment. And that's one of the reasons I love going back to Sid's original writings, because it's all the answers are really there, and they're not answers, they're his metaphors for what he saw in life. And that's why that's why I think he brings out these insights so readily in us, because they are just metaphors. They're not telling you how to think or what to think. But my understanding I guess I have an edge on this because I'm reading the highlights of Second Chance and In Search of the Pearl into the video. So, in those short videos. So I remember one of the lines that mind and brain are the same thing. It's all God. It's all divine mind, divine energy, whether in form or formless. Now, it's 2 different uses, right? The mind, we can't say how the mind uses us other than to express itself, whatever that is. And brain, we use to think, but the ability to think is mind. Mind gives us that power, that ability to think, which is an incredible gift that sets us apart from, other things in the outside world. And we can use that thinking in our favor, or we can use that thinking against ourselves. Listening to Teresa say that you think of your pain as a gift. It's like a reminder that you are human in a human body and you are given life. There's so much we can do with life, even when we're in physical pain. That why let that stop you? Why let anything else stop you? Some trauma you had from the past, or emotional trauma, or some kind of physical abuse. Why let that stop you? That's not who you are, what happened to you. And it's interesting because that was, the second module or meeting for today is about who and what we really are. Wow, that's the thing to really see, because in my mind, and here comes the machines again.
I wanted to say for what Pallavi said about the truth. The truth changes, doesn't it? Because what we believe as a child, or even a few years ago, I became vegetarian, and then I did a bit more research, and in 2018, I changed my diet again, and I ended up in hospital with a suspected heart attack. And I read a lot of books about fasting, and I changed my diet again then. And it's like, I'm the same person, but in that year, I think, oh, this way of eating is really healthy. And then I do some research, and then I think, oh, this thing is healthy. So in a few years, I might think different about my pain also. So the thing that when we talk about something or even argue with people about something, this is just a snapshot. And we forget, we think, oh, this is the truth now. And we forget that actually maybe a month before, we thought something else was the truth. And the other thing, I always say, I'm really healthy. I just happen to have a few health issues, like I've got deformities, bone deformities in my body, but I'm healthy. Even having fibromyalgia, I'm healthy. I just happen to. And for example, I never said there is no cure. You know, I was in these fibromyalgia groups on Facebook, and I left them all because people, or some people, they moan and they're very into this. Life is not worth it. No one understands me, and there is no cure. And I always say, yeah, there's a cure. They just haven't found it yet, but the cure is there, you know. And I remember when my mum was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, I didn't understand her. I just thought, yeah, we all have pain a bit, you know, and her fibromyalgia is totally different from mine. But in the past, when I was very depressed and very anxious and didn't have these physical problems, I always said, oh, I'm so unwell. I didn't have the awareness. I didn't know anything about three principles or nothing. And I would always say to my friend, oh, I'm not well today. I'm not well. And I was really into this, and I was sleeping a lot and not doing anything. And now my physical health is worse than it was 10 or 20 years before. And I say, no, I'm a very healthy person. I just happen to use a wheelchair. It's no big deal, you know. And this I am is really powerful. And Wayne Dyer speaks about a lot these I am sentences. And it's really important, once you're aware of this, to change then, instead of I'm ill or I'm in pain. Oh, I have a bit pain, or this hurts, or I need this or so. It's a very subtle thing. But I don't identify with the pain anymore. I have pain. I'm not pain. And that's a bit different.
Yeah, that was beautiful, right? I mean, it's so true. We have the ability to think about what we think. We can decide if this makes sense for us to keep going in this direction, this line of thinking. You know, here's another metaphor of George Pransky's. I love this. He said, you know, if you're standing at a bus stop and you're waiting for the A bus to take you to this beautiful park to meet your friend, and the F bus comes along, and you say, well, this one's quicker, I'm just going to jump on the F bus. Well, the F bus could bring you to the ghetto. You know, the same with thinking. We don't have to jump on the back of every thought we get. If it's going to bring us into the ghetto, or, you know, some not nice place, then why would we do that? Why, you know, we have the common sense to focus on the thinking that is beautiful and wonderful. You know, in another quote, look at what is, not at what isn't. The awful pain, why me? Why would this happen to me? It's so unfair. I'm a good girl. I'm a good boy. And that's the thinking that makes it more painful and keeps you from living life to the fullest. So I'm going mute again. Step in, ladies.
I want to pick up on Theresa's comment about this, like, and Pallavi as well, around identity. So I think people get really attached to their own identity of seeing themselves as a thing. And I've done this in the past, like, I am a high achiever. And then if I don't meet that identity, then I must be broken. And I've noticed how like this is obvious a lot of the time how we view others as well. And you're completely right. If someone does something a year ago, I'm likely, the old me would assume that they're going to repeat the pattern. Even though I know if I did something bad a year ago, I've probably had enough learning now to like not repeat the pattern. But I think people, so what I'm trying to say is people get, I think it's easier on the human brain to put you in a box, to put others in boxes, because it's simpler. When actually, well, that's one approach, right? But the approach that you come to with the 3 principles understanding is like, I'm just going to see what shows up today and how I resonate with it. And in a way, that's simpler, because it's just like, I'm just going to leave mind to it and see how I respond to this person. I might do something wrong. If I say something wrong, mind will pop up tomorrow and tell me I was a dick, and I'll be able to correct myself. Like, so leave it to that rather than like thinking. But so many people I know are so caught up in this idea of having to define themselves, and it's a big problem with my past relationship, because he really wanted to nail his identity. Who am I? Like, what am I going to be known for? What kind of traits? How should I respond to this message from someone that, you know, shows something about myself? And I'm just like, just reply, like, whatever. So sometimes he wouldn't reply to messages because he doesn't know what to say that's going to translate the identity he wants.
Oh my God.
I was like, your identity is fluid, and it just comes from like being who you are. People get a sense that like, okay, you're a bit different from the guy John or the guy Bob, but it's, you know, you're fluid. Everyone's got their own flavor, but it doesn't mean there's like a set of things ascribed to you. I mean, obviously, like I have certain things that are bigger than, and some things that are smaller, but they might change, and other people might have the opposite. But I'm really puzzled why people are so attached to having their firm identity. It's almost like I want to be able to give you a piece of paper telling you how awesome I am, rather than trusting that you'll think I'm awesome just by me being and like letting things flow.
That is really nice.
For some, is their identity. Lori, you know, my sister that is still going on. And she phones me between 1 to 15 times a day. Although last week I put a stop to that. I said, you phone once a day and once a day only. And between that time in the morning or between that time and that time in the evening. And if you're ruminating, I'm going to hang up. It took her almost a week to understand that. Anyway, that's another story. But her identity is that poor me, I'm a victim. And she ruminates. And when I stop her rumination, she says, I need to verbalize. So you're not verbalizing, you're just ruminating. There's a big difference, right? And I'll be happy when, if this or that happens.
Yeah.
I said, well, yeah, that cannot depend on that. And for the last, since April, she's phoned me between 1 to 15 times a day and trying all the time to bring her, no, look in that direction, no. And it might work for a day or two, and then of course there's no drama in her life, so she has to create some more. But their whole identity is on that. So when we try to point it to the now, no, but right now, no. But right now it's not going on because my phone is still acting, blah, blah, blah. So, in this very moment. And I wonder, that's the question. I wonder how long it will take before. I cannot ask her to, she doesn't understand English. She doesn't speak English. So I cannot ask her. I didn't try to make her listen to Sid once. I said maybe just a calming voice will have an effect. And there's nothing. in French, 3P. So I wonder how long it will take before now she figures out that suffering is optional. And yeah.
It's interesting what you say about her identity is like being in crisis or being a victim. And I wonder with my mum is the same, and I'm sure it serves her in some way. Like yeah, it's a useful identity in some way, and that's why it's hard to let go and just be who she truly is.
But the thing is, it's not useful anymore. No, she burned everybody else. So she has like no friends left, right? So it's not serving anymore.
The way this is maybe a tangent. The way I think it serves my mother is that because she's pushed everyone away, but because she's the victim, she doesn't need to look at what she's done wrong. So it's protecting her from shame, which is a horrible feeling. So this is a bit of a tangent, but that's where
And
she doesn't think she'll be safe to hold shame.
what's that? Say that again, Flick.
With the 3 principles understanding, like you understand that even if I'm feeling shame or guilt, I am okay, just having a human experience. So my mom doesn't feel that she's safe to feel shame. So she avoids it. Like, oh, I don't want that monster in the house.
Yeah, but you know, even beyond feeling shame is recognizing psychological innocence. One of you brought that before. When you see that everyone, including ourselves, was psychologically innocent when we did or said what we did or said, and you know, oh man, I'm embarrassed, but I don't feel shame because, you know, I'm embarrassed. I was so stupid back then, but I understand. That's all I saw back then. And thank heavens, I see that that was ridiculous or unnecessary or bad.
Really nice.
You know? I made a human mistake. And thankfully, I know now that it was a mistake. Man, I would do so much better. If we knew better, we would do better.
That's a lovely reminder. Thank you, Laurie.
Say again, Flick.
That's a lovely reminder.
Yeah, right. It's like Sid says, it's about seeing. It's seeing with all capital letters. And that, I don't know, for me, it happened over a lot of time. You know, really, like small little increments, and then a big jump is how it felt, and then small little increments, and then another big jump. That's how it felt through the years. Some people, you know, especially today, people who are just coming into the principles, they can watch videos and read books from Sid, you know, and from all the students that learn from Sid, because it's really good to read, you know, Michael Neal's book, The Inside Out Revolution, Elsie Spittle's books, and then you go back and you read Sid again, and then you start seeing, you know, that's the group effect that we learn from one another. So all the 3 principles books that have come out since Sid's passing, really, all will point you back to your own wisdom, your own knowing, your own seeing. Was something else. I mean, so many incredible things. I'm going to have to listen to this recording again because I know Martine, you said suffering is optional.
Yes.
You, suffering is optional.
But I will add a little thing, because as you were talking, I was about a month ago, George and Dickon did a 3-day seminar, and I was on that 3-day seminar. Well, Zoom.
Me too.
And Dickens said something, and I've heard that before, that lots of people are mad about 3P practitioners because they have no compassion. Oh yeah, it's only your thinking. You're suffering. You're thinking. It's your thinking. And some people find that to see a 3P coach, that they lack compassion because yeah, it's only your thinking now. And so that's one of I don't think all three, I will say, not, but sometimes I might. But it could be tempting though, like with my sister, but probably because she's my sister. I'm thinking that no, there's another layer, but we have to be more careful not to be in a blaming. Oh yes, you're thinking. No, and yeah. So it's just my 2 cents again.
That's a really nice point, Martine, because it can be really tempting to do that. But even if it is just their thinking, the human experience that they're having is really uncomfortable. And
Absolutely.
we deserve compassion, and we deserve some
Yeah.
do you want a hug? Because that's a shitty storm going through you right now.
Right.
It's gonna pass, but it's shit.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I haven't heard, I don't do coach training. So I really, although I heard from somebody, come to think of it, in the UK, had an experience where a facilitator, I don't know if it was a 3 principles coach, but some sort of facilitator in a group. And she got that kind of message. Well, it's just your thinking. Well, it's one thing to know that it's thought that brings us our experience. And it's another thing to know, as we all have experienced,
From here
some
to here.
really difficult places.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we know what it's like to suffer. And even when we know it's our thinking, we can suffer. Maybe not as long or as hard, but absolutely. Yeah. So compassion, absolutely, for the human condition.
Yeah.
You see, I don't know how it's in other countries, but in the UK, people really suffer. So, for example, I have post-exertion malaise, is called. So the last time I tried yoga, 3 hours later, I was very, very ill, and it's one of the chronic fatigue symptoms. And until a few years, people, especially children, they were forced to do graded exercise, is called. And the thing with post-exertion malaise is normally exercise makes you feel better, but for some reason, exercise makes the people really ill. And it was so extreme that in England, people, even when they said, I have chronic fatigue and I can't do anything. There's an example of one girl that was sectioned, forced to do exercise, and killed herself because she just didn't get better. So a lot of people with fibromyalgia, and I know from my mom in Germany, she experienced that as well. For years, they weren't believed because you can't do a blood test, you can't do an X-ray. I'm in a way lucky because I've got body deformities, which are shown on an X-ray. But people who have only illnesses that cannot be proved in a way, they're told, oh, it's only in your mind. You must feel depressed. You must be anxious. And of course you have pain then. And then people branch out and try to go to other practitioners. If they then hear the same from a 3 principle practitioner, that can be really disheartened. And I wanted to tell you a story. It's not very long, but there is a tribe and they're living. And one day there is a plant growing and they're all very scared of this plant. And an explorer comes and he greets them, and then he sees the plant and he just marches up to the plant. He lifts the leaf and says, that's a watermelon. And he takes a watermelon, he opens it and he eats it. And they run him out of the village. A few years pass and the plant is still growing. They're all very fearful. And another explorer comes and they welcome him. And what he does is he can see from afar, oh, it's probably a watermelon. But every day he goes with them towards the watermelon, but he only goes one step further and then he runs away again. And every day they come a bit closer until one day he can touch it, and he touches it and he runs away again. And they're all like, you okay? You touched it. And he said, I don't know. It seems not that dangerous. I touched it. And they keep going until one day he can open it carefully and they all eat together. And I know I was like the first explorer. I was the teacher. I knew better and I'm teaching you. And this story so touched me because we know we have experienced the three principles because it's not a method that you teach people. I didn't understand it, and I read so much and I had to leave it alone, and one day it went from my brain to my heart and I got it. But just because I've got it now, the whole moral of the story is that you have to pick people up where they are. If they're in a big hole, go down in the hole. Don't stand and shout at them and say, oh yeah, look, there's the stairs over there, you have to get out. It's not gonna work. And I think the people who just tell people then, oh, it's only in your mind or so, they probably have forgotten that it's about the feeling, because even Sid said, don't listen to my words, listen to the feeling. So how can we explain people? How can we say to them, oh yeah, it's only in your brain? Yeah, it's true. It's logically true, but you're speaking here and they're feeling it here and you're never going to meet. So you need to go down and you need maybe to explore or ask questions so they find the solution themselves, because like we already know, everybody is okay and everybody has the wisdom in them. We are not giving them anything. We're just helping them to explore by, like, I had a conversation with my brother and I said to him that I just don't get triggered anymore. And he didn't understand it. And he said, well, yeah, but if someone is really rude, of course you have to get angry. And I said, you know what, that's what I thought. And I thought I had to use my willpower not to get angry. But you know what? It just doesn't touch me anymore. And I just shared my experience. I don't know if it made any difference. I mean, I sent him books and I don't know if he's read them or not. He's still bitter and blames our parents for everything. But if we more share rather than tell people, I think then we can reach them much better. And the people who are telling, maybe they lost their way. Just because people say, yeah, I'm a 3P practitioner, it doesn't mean that they really got it. It's just a title, really.
That really resonates, Teresa, because when I first discovered the principles, I was so excited. I was sharing it intellectually.
Yeah, me too.
And when you share it as a concept, people put it into that bucket of psychological concepts. So they're like, okay, what do I have to do? And I'm like, oh, it's not a strategy. There's no way in. It's just like, you're already doing it. It's the truth. And suddenly it becomes quite confusing. So I found the best way is just sharing my insights, like your anger story, just saying like, I've realized that, yeah, like when I get wrapped up in my thoughts and how I can stop being wrapped up in my thoughts and what the difference is, or what it feels like. And I was like, oh, I really made a very clear-headed, wise decision. And it felt very different from when I'm in my thinking, decision-making brain, and just pointing to that rather than like trying to lay down a prescription. And I think speaking to other people in the community at different conferences and stuff, they're like, yeah, stories are the best way. And just living it yourself is the best way, not preaching. Because I think as soon as you start preaching, people get a little bit defensive as well.
Yeah, because in a way you're telling them you're wrong and I'm right.
You are telling them they're wrong.
And we are not. We are all right.
Yeah, exactly. It's just the level where we're at.
Yeah, exactly.
3 years ago, I didn't know what the 3 principles were. So yeah, so that's really cool. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, thank you so much, ladies. I mean, it's true, it's sharing, isn't it? It's just, and it's always best if somebody asks, even if we go and share and there's not somebody who's receptive on the other end, that's still going to come across as preaching. So the best is, you know, what Sid said, live what you know. Just live it.
Yeah, it just reminds me what I felt was most impactful to me is this feeling that Hannah reflected back to me that she was totally sure that I'm okay. Yeah, whatever was going on. And actually, I also really liked that she didn't ask about my story. I only noticed it afterwards. We were talking for 10 hours. And like a few weeks later, I noticed, oh, I didn't even tell her my parents are divorced or whatever. Like, and this was really new to me, like in comparison to all the other stuff I've done before. But I think like emotionally, what impacted me most was that she wasn't scared like of my story, my symptoms, my freaked out mind, whatever. It was just like, yeah, you're still fine, you know. And I know that maybe in another state in my life, it might have been challenging for me, or might have been annoyed with how can she think I'm fine? But like in that moment, and maybe that's also the point of a good practitioner, somebody who can maybe feel or resonate with you. But this was the perfect thing for me. Like it took it took such a big part of all the hysteria and fear about it just out of it, because I could just see it reflected in her, like the safety of it, the safety of the whole experience. And that was very impactful for me.
There is a word for it. I just got a book. Let me think. Is when, for example, they made like tests with teachers, and if the teachers, there was like an experiment, and the teachers were giving some numbers, and it's called the Pygmalion effect, and the teachers were told, oh, this is the IQ from the students. So do you know the story?
Yeah.
And they were so excited to treat the students, and then they went really well, so their scores went up and everything. And then later they were told, no, these were the days of absence they had from school, you know. So it's the expectations of another person that can lift you up, and your whole body language, and people can feel the energy if you just really believe they're okay, or if you think, nah, you're not gonna manage that, and you don't even have to tell them really. And that's the gift we can give to each other. If we have the knowledge that we're all okay, it can make such a big difference to people, and they don't need to believe in themselves. We can believe in them. And
that's really nice. That reminds me that there's a concept in Neo Tantra called transfiguration. And it means when you treat someone like they are already at their full potential, like you see their soul and you treat them as if they are their soul's divine, wise, resilient, basically like they're just awesome.
Yeah.
And when you treat them like that, and I've noticed it when this has worked with people, they become it. And the trick is that they say you won't notice that trait in them if you won't feel that trait in them if they don't have it.
What is that called? What's the technique called?
It's called transfiguration. Trans meaning like it's like changing someone. It's basically when you treat someone as if they're already there, like they're already acting from their wisdom the whole time, and they're already their full self. They do become it. They become it. And it's the same as the story with the teachers. If you treat someone like and then it's the same the other way around. If I treat you like you're garbage, you're going to feel like you're garbage. Yeah.
And that's the beauty of knowing everybody has innate health.
Yeah.
Everybody. There are no exceptions, none. There was a study, you reminded me of this years ago, before I think I even knew about the 3 principles, where a teacher was given just random kids for her next year's class from, all different levels. And she was told that she's getting the cream of the crop, that she's going to have the best students. Guess what? They all got A's. It was a study. And, so that really.
And they weren't the cream of the crop. They were just random kids. They weren't the best kids. They were just random.
The kids, they were some of them had failed last year or failed 2 years ago, or, you know, they were average students, but she saw them as the cream of the crop and she treated them that way. And she brought out the best in them. And the beauty of it is that was a doing. They purposely set that up. But really knowing about innate health, it's no longer a doing. It's just an automatic. You treat people like they have crazy human stuff going on, but they've got this innate health at their core. That's how everybody is like that.
And that really like points to the power of thought as well. So it reminds me, my mum always told me I'd be bad at sport. Because she was bad at sport. She thought I would be bad at sport because I had eye difficulties. And there was no evidence that I would be bad at sport, but she just believed because I had glasses, I would be bad at sport like her. So I had it drilled into me that I was bad at sport. So when I was playing sport, I had all these thoughts in my head of, I'm going to drop the ball, I'm going to miss, no one will want to play with me. And those thoughts meant that I was so anxious, I did drop the ball. And now as an adult, I see past that and I'm actually quite good at sports. I just never had any like belief and I never practiced because I avoided it so much. I didn't practice, so of course I wasn't going to be good.
That is a really funny thing, actually. You know, we think a lot is talent. And yes, there are maybe people who have a very nice voice, but even that is the length of their chords. And some people are maybe more into music, they have a talent, but in the end, it comes down to practice. It's like I always, when people say, oh, I can't draw, I always say, can you write? And they, yeah. And I said, when you started writing, can you remember how awful that was? But because everybody expected you to learn to write, you just kept going. But with other things, you don't expect people to learn to draw. So they draw something and they think, oh, that's shit. And they're stopping. So a lot comes down. Like you said, you have to believe and this is self-fulfilling prophecy, I'm bad at sport. So you put less effort in. And then, oh, look, I'm bad at sport. Yes. No one sees this. This is really crazy. And then the other person doesn't have these beliefs and just keep going. And then everybody's like, oh, I wish I would be that talented. Yeah, well, they practiced 3 hours every day and you didn't, you know. And we think this makes sense. That's the funny thing with three principles. When you see the things, you just have to laugh. Oh, my God, you know, like, oh, I believe this.
Yeah, that's a really funny one. So true, isn't it? So true. Yeah.
Wow.
I love these stories. Yeah. And we're sharing. This is what it's about, just sharing what we've come to see and what we look forward to seeing more of. Right? And so we learn from sharing, and whoever's going to be listening to this recording, they'll learn what they learn from their own insights. It's wild, isn't it? It's so simple.
Can you just explain how to use what I didn't figure out? Are we supposed to watch your videos in a certain order in the group, or what are we supposed? So I just read and watched it, but I looked at it, I thought, I don't want to start at the wrong end or so.
That's a good question, Teresa. I'm not really sure, but as I made the videos, on my end, I don't know how it looks on your end, but they stack one on top of the other in YouTube. And then I was sharing one at a time over to our Facebook group. And they again stacked one on top of the other. So I thought, well, if that's what happens on your end, then it's best to read the welcome, the intro kind of thing, and then slide all the way down to the bottom, like sliding on a banister, I guess, and work your way up. But probably it doesn't matter, because I originally was going to answer questions. That was my thinking, but there are no questions. There was one or two. So I wound up just reading from second chance, things that I had highlighted that really, wow, this is something, this is profound. So I just read them just as a way to kind of keep in touch with everybody. It's by no means mandatory. The only thing mandatory about this is spending a half an hour with Sid.
Mm.
Because
Sorry, how do you advise we do that, Laurie?
what's that, Fleck?
How do you advise we spend half an hour with Sid?
Yeah, either reading Second Chance, or any of his books really, but I just thought Second Chance would be great because it's his first book. And then the sequel is In Search of the Pearl. And they're also the two books that Dr. Pettit had recommended in his program, Mind, Brain, Body, Behavior Connection. And he says, read Second Chance as often as you can, because every time he's read it, he's seen something new.
Mm.
Yeah, isn't that something?
Mm.
He even said to Sid, the second time he read it, he asked Sid, when did you come out with this other edition? It's great. And Sid burst out laughing. I haven't heard. Bill read a different edition. I certainly did, but I'm embarrassed to say I hadn't read it since 1985. It was Bill Pettit who got me to read it a second time in 2020. And that's how this really, it was already in the works, but this mystery school evolved from that one sentence from Bill Pettit. You know, when I had always noticed that my clients who read or listened to Sid's videos surpassed my clients who I recommend it to everyone. I also recommend, somebody should have told us, Jack Pransky and Michael Neal, Inside Out Revolution, and, you know, the Relationship Handbook, George Pransky. So I also recommend those, but why not go directly to the source, the person who uncovered, well, he wasn't looking. Sid's epiphany happened because he was on a short-lived search to save his marriage. I don't know if you know that story. And he wound up he and his wife wound up in an encounter group where they were having the couples fight more. And they looked at each other and they said, we already know how to do this. Why would we want to do this more? We want to stop fighting. You know, common sense. And that's when, you know, and Sid talked to somebody on the way out. He said, I'm just so insecure. And the guy just happened to say, well, you're not insecure. That's impossible. You just think you're insecure. And the guy who said that made no impact on him. That was just words. But to Sid, that opened up the skies, you know, heaven on earth. I don't know how you want to say it, but it just opened up an amazing thing that in 1973, I mean, look at the ripples throughout the world. Conferences now with 1,000 people, and that's people in attendance, not having to do with the people who are live streamed in. And so it's wonderful that people are sharing how this understanding, it's just a simple understanding, really, that we're creating our experience every single moment through our own thinking. And man, sometimes it doesn't look like our own thinking. It doesn't look like we were the creator. It looks like it was beamed in from some planetary source that's really important to pay attention to.
I love that. I was listening to one of Bill Pettit's interviews yesterday about personality disorders, and he's helped so many people with personality disorders like OCD, and I'm interested because someone thinks my mum has borderline, and I was like, I'm sure there's a 3 principles way of thinking about borderline. And he does talk about borderline in that, but he just said it's just really simple. You're either in your right mind or you're not. And if you're not, shut your mouth and sit on your hands.
Yeah, the talks of Bill Petit are so great, right? I love them too.
He's
Yeah,
he's like, I used to tell my students I carried duct tape, like sellotape with me, so I could just tape my mouth as soon as I noticed I was in my wrong mind. But really, it's that
like,
simple.
Yeah, he puts out it also so simple with all the mental disorders and blah blah blah. He just says there's only one mental disorder, it's chronic mental stress, and that's it. And it's so cool because he's a psychiatrist and has been working with this for so long that there's really some credibility, you know, like you can feel like I feel like I can recommend him to people who ask me about this because it's not just some blah blah. It's like he's really experienced with this. Yeah.
Yeah,
I wish my sister spoke English. She's borderline, and I know that he trained other psychiatrists to work in 3Ps, like in Sweden or in Italy. So I said, I didn't know any French-speaking one, and he says, "Well, I will work with her." I said, "Well, I'm not translating. I'm not playing." No, but yeah. So they are. It's starting to spread because he has a network of other psychiatrists that are working 3Ps. I've met a couple when I went to Viva last year. So,
do you know where I could find that list, Martine, of the other people following Bill Pettit?
You have to ask him because he's the one who knows.
There are more people he's been training.
Yeah, that are psychiatrists that work with 3Ps. Yeah, because like I said, when I was in Viva, there was a few of them there.
But Martine, here in Germany, we have a German lady who's half French who is a 3P coach. So maybe it would be worth to look at her. Her name is Drissia. She's in the general 3P groups too. I can send you a link or something or post her in our group.
I found I saw somebody also in Montreal. She graduated in June from Michael's super coach as well, but she's not listening. She's not hearing anything.
You know, I don't know if you already mentioned this, but Bill was also meeting with a number of people through the VA system, like the top of the VA system. And
what's the VA system?
On calls and
for veterans.
They were reading Second Chance. Oh, Veterans Association. Sorry, Flick. Yeah, that's right. In America, be different than veterans. And so they run the hospitals and the mental health units and for veterans. And guess what they were doing on their phone calls? Reading Second Chance or The Missing Link. I think they were reading The Missing Link actually. They would get on group calls and read The Missing Link. I mean, that's what an advocate Bill is. People are calling him the best psychiatrist in the world.
Really? Who's calling him that? That's amazing.
Yeah. You know, and I love how he says he and Linda, his wife, have a website that their logo is I never remember the order.
Never broken, never lacking. Is that that?
Yeah, never broken.
Yeah.
Never lacking. Yeah.
Oh, wait, people could see that. Oh my gosh! If everybody in the world saw that they just have crazy human thinking from time to time.
Yeah, it's that simple. Yeah. It's never broken, nothing lacking. Yeah.
Like, you know, to me, OCD, there are some really good aspects of OCD. I'd like to have more OCD in certain areas. I don't know if you mentioned this, that Sid said in the future there will be one diagnosis, the misuse of the ability to think. Every year, the psychiatric community, the American Medical Association comes up with these, the AMA comes up with these diagnostic codes. Like in order for me to be reimbursed by insurance, I have to give somebody a diagnosis. And I always tell them, it's your choice. We'll do it together. We'll diagnose you together. You know, I could give them adjustment disorder with mixed emotions because everybody always adjusts to something. To me, that's like the least labeling of all the labels. So I give
Well, I
it,
thought that they had a label now, which is no label, like no, not specified or something.
right. You know, it's an evolution. We're in this evolution of mental health and well-being in the world.
Well, the one thing I do grief recovery as well. And the one thing we say that grief is the normal and natural reaction to loss. And there's a lot, I find a lot of free principle thoughts in there. And there's nothing wrong with you. Grievers are not broken. They do not need to be fixed. So it sounds a lot like this. And from that understanding, I developed then as well. Anger is the normal and natural reaction to things that are not right in your life. You could be overtired, you could be hungry, someone could put demands on you. There is toxic anger where people then stay in their thinking and they don't use it to change something other than to eat or to rest or to put a healthy boundary up. But depression and anxiety are also normal and natural reaction, and I don't treat them as illnesses anymore. I want to say to people, how lucky are you that you got depressed? Because if you, it's like some people, they don't feel when they cut themselves, and it's a really dangerous illness because especially when kids have that, when they fall, they don't get the sensation, oh, I'm hurting. They just keep going, and that could lead to early death. So imagine you wouldn't become anxious, you wouldn't become depressed. How awful. You would just burn out. But the medical societies, I listened to Sid Banks this morning, and it was a video where he described how the church said, no, we are looking after the soul. And then the medical said, oh, we can just look at the body. And he said, people look after the fact when it's too late. So when you're ill, and then they treat you, oh, you have an illness, here's some medication, rather than looking, oh, what happened, that you are feeling this and saying, oh, you're depressed because you're suppressing your emotions. So how can I help you to speak the emotional truth or say to people, look, I don't like the way you treat me. But instead of doing this, people think, oh, I'm not allowed to say anything. I have to put up with this partner or with this parent or whatever, because I have to preserve the relationship and it's dangerous not to say anything. And I had a change in, my mum likes to gossip about my brother because we have this typical triangle, isn't it? That two people talk about the third person and it strengthens their relationship. And I've changed so much, and she started again. And I just said to her, you know what, if you have a problem with my brother, please tell him directly. I don't want to hear it anymore. And she ignored me because that's what she does if I put a boundary up. And I don't mind because I know she does it innocently. If I would tell her, you're ignoring me, she would be horrified. I really think she is not aware that she becomes really silent instead of calling me all the time. And I just have to wait till she feels a bit better and then it's over because she does it innocently. But once we start to speak the emotional truth and tell these people, and we are okay with their reaction, we don't fear that they might not talk to us, I don't get depressed by this anymore because I set a boundary. You don't like it, you ignore me. Okay, I just wait till you finish with it. But yeah, to then give someone some medication so they're not, it's not that they don't, I took medication for 14 years. I was still depressed and I was still anxious. And no one ever said, you're taking medication like for 2 years now? That should be finished. Nah, they just gave me every month new ones. And that's the problem. We are deciding that something that is a normal and natural reaction to something that doesn't work is something we have to medicate and we have to insure it. And that's where the problem is. But that's also where the healing is, when we can tell people now, you're not ill, you're just feeling, and there's nothing wrong with it.
Oh, I went to unmute myself, but I was already unmuted. This has been so lovely. We have to cut it off though, because I've got a client in 2 minutes. And I just love this. I'm going to have to listen to the recording. So I'm going to stop the recording and say goodbye to all of you. Oh, wait a minute. I almost, you know what? Here we go.